Ah, yes. There we go. Hello.
Welcome.
Oh, Arnold. Hello, Arnold. Oh, my goodness. People are coming. Hello, hello. It's so lovely to see people coming on. Okay. All right. So I'm the official starter for our chat on the bench. And in future, we may send out a notice ahead of time, but this time I'm just going to leap in with a theme. And the theme this week, which we absolutely do not have to follow, but it's here, is trust and building trust, community trust. And in the week, Krista had shared with me a blog about trust building in the community. And I loved it so much. I said to Krista, I think we should use that to start off our chat on the bench. So I'm going to introduce it. It's from a person by the name of Eric Dunans or Dunnans. And we're going to see if he might actually join us down the road a bit. And he gave us 4 ways of establishing trust. And I thought, wow, time banks are all about building trust. Edgar would come to that again and again and again. And like I said, he's got my back right now. He's right behind me here. And he would always say, it's about trust, because it's about building trust. So here they are. The first one is promises kept. Promises kept, which is when you make promises, you keep your promises. When you make commitments, you follow your commitments. And because that builds trust. And that one, he gave C names to each of them. That one was contractual. And the second one was clear and frequent communication, letting people know what you think, how you think, clearly and frequently, and setting expectations so that people know the rules to follow, and they support those rules, or they discuss them and learn about them, but they know the rules to follow, they support local causes, and they accept change. And the third one is, okay, so you've said you will do what you will do, and you did it, but did you do it well? It's competency, because doing things poorly or not very well can lose trust. And the fourth one that he gave was caring for the other. So doing things with empathy, with compassion, showing that you have interest and care. So those were the 4 that he laid out. And there is a blog, and Krista can share the link, and you can see, because he gives suggestions on how to achieve those 4 things. So it was contractual, communication, competency, and caring. And then I added, because I just felt I must do this because we're so much about reciprocity, one more, which was, those are all about earning trust, but we also need to give trust. And so many times we can be a little suspicious of other people's motives, or not giving them the benefit of the doubt on things. So just really trusting leads to trust, I believe. So I'm going to just leave it there and open up to the group, all of you, to think about, or just put on the table, how you have seen trust being built by your time bank. And it can be a very personal story of somebody doing something for you as a time bank member that just built that sense of trust with another person, or with the group, or with the time bank at large. Or it may be you as a coordinator feeling that you've had to earn trust in some way on behalf of the time bank. So our theme today is trust. And on that point, we just open it up to whomever would like to raise their hand. And you can raise it this way, or you can raise it with that nice little yellow doodah thing that they offer. And I see that there are 12 chats already. Oh my gosh. And that's wonderful too. I'll try and keep an eye on chats as well as hands coming up. Okay, and Krista will look too, so that we don't miss, because it's easy to do that. So, any thoughts? I know this has just been suddenly sprung on you, but I have a feeling that trust building is probably a pretty important theme in your own time bank experience and your exchanges. So I'm going to break the silence for a moment, which actually, I actually love these silences. I'm just going to say this because I think the silences are people taking time to think. And that's a beautiful thing. So I'm sorry to have interrupted it, but just want to say we're fine with the silences.
It looks like Gail rose her hand.
Yes, hi, good afternoon. From New York City, Woman Share, which is part of Time Bank here in Manhattan. Trust, that's a good one. One of our members fell and was hospitalized and is in rehab. And the trust that we established for her was whenever one of us visits her and we find out what she needs, we then let the group know that whoever will be going next, this is what she needs, you know, and to call her. And it's working out so nicely. You know, when I say we're from New York City, some of us are in the borough of Brooklyn, the borough of Queens, and via the subway, you know, it's not always that safe lately these days, but it's working quite well. So thank you.
Love that. I bet other people love that too. So if that inspires somebody, so lovely. Thank you, Gail, for sharing that. And I hope your colleague is on the mend. I hope that the rehab is really working for her.
It is, yes, thank you.
That's very good to hear. It's, excellent. Oh, Ken. You're on.
Yeah, I'm multitasking, right? Lowering my hand. And when you were mentioning trust, Chris, and when I think the last conversation we had about data, it's so important when we think about trusting, when we're building that relationship and we're keeping track of anything, even if it's just someone signing up saying, "Hey, I'd love to participate." I think we really need to be good stewards of that trust on any data we're keeping, their name, reaching out to them. And I think sadly that's not been happening, especially during my time in working in systems of care. So I love building trust, and also as a marriage and family therapist for 20 years. When I started when I was 10, and but I think that's, you know, when we think about relationship building, we think about working to build something so beautiful as time banking. We really do need to be mindful of trusting where any information, anything, even if it's a phone number to call, that we're building trust from that standpoint. That's just my couple of cents. So thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That is really interesting because we are building a public space. It's not just, I mean, it's in between this interesting space that time banking is always creating, which is somewhere in between really public and private. It's a very much needed in-between space that we're creating for people to feel that they can access resources widely, but at the same time feel that sort of intimacy of relationships that they can turn around and trust, like a good neighborhood used to. And in many places, there are still these wonderful neighborhoods where people all trust one another. But there are also many places now where there is not so much trust. Mm-hmm. Hello, yes, Patty.
So yeah, you've hit on some very interesting points, and totally agree with you about, you know, keeping commitments and keeping promises and how important trust is. I'm involved in 3 projects right now, and entirely dependent on volunteers to help out. And you know, their ability to keep their word is just so important. Am I getting what I need to get accomplished? So
what you said about people keeping their word being so important, it really, it comes down to one person on one person on one person, doesn't it? It comes down to, do I trust that person? And then behind that person, there may be a system, but it's that person that we encounter.
Yes,
Hmm.
definitely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Patty.
Mhm.
I see some new people have come on too, which is really great.
Yeah,
And welcome all of those who've come on. I will just tell you, if you've just come on, that we are talking about different ways in which we build trust and how important that is for time banking, and where and how with a time bank we build trust in a community, and the different levels that we do that, either at personal levels or more sort of systems levels. The time bank is there to be a sort of trust builder place. So that's what we're talking about, and hearing about how that either sings for you, or whether you have, Kurt, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand go up there. Okay, Kurt.
Well, I guess the thought I'm coming up with here is, I think one of the pathways that we have a chance at trust with others is on the listening side, of our life. That when we kind of think of potential to have a curiosity dialogue, and the interest in the other person's story. So like with doing time banking stuff, everything we do and want to bring out there to the community and to a person about time banking, I think part of how we can grow trust is parking our agenda about time banking. And if somebody comes to us through the venue of time banking, how much are we just parking all that, just checking in and saying, how are you doing? How's life going? How can we help? And, what are you looking for? What are your expectations? And to let the other person drive their experience with us. Because I think if they feel they're in the driver's seat, they might be more inclined to trust us, because they feel that when they show up, that they are going to be received, rather than having what we're trying to do. Not necessarily pushed upon them, but that they're just more experiencing what we're trying to do versus we're not receiving what they want to do. It might be hard to build trust.
Thank you. I know that your experience, Kurt, comes out of working with people who have challenges, physical challenges, disabilities, that they actually makes life a bit harder for them compared to when you're able to just do things how you normally ever would do them. So that listening has been very, very important for you.
Yeah, and the disability community taught me the term self-determination. So I guess that speaks a lot, that they've had to institutionalize this thought of self-determination, because if we look at history, people who are outside of the disability community pretty much determine what the life of a person with disabilities ought to be. And then people with disabilities just had to just do it that way, that everybody else told them what they had to do. So that's kind of where we're turning a corner in history. People with disabilities are finally starting to be able to do what they want to do.
And they do a lot. I
Yes.
mean, it's like, huh? So yes, indeed. The people with disabilities, many, of course, over history have risen above those impositions put upon them, those lowered expectations. But to have opened the space collectively is something, it's been a revolution in the past couple of decades, hasn't it?
Absolutely. So it's exciting where it can go. We got a long ways to go.
Yes. And I think that, we live in such funny, weird, disparate times. We're at a time of sort of shutting down on people and opening up on people at the very same time. It's a historical moment where we're all upside down and in between and roundabout. You see people stepping forward in just the way that you've said, and at the same time as you see backlashes to this stepping forward. But so this building trust piece is so deeply important right now because of that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly why I'm here, because I ran an event called Ability Fest in 2015, and the Milwaukee Area Time Exchange showed up. And in how I was able to experience that I could trust the Milwaukee Area Time Exchange, and that it was relevant to me, you know, caring about disability advocacy. I continue on with all of you because I see this community as the best positioned community available to me to move forward what the disability community has done.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I think I saw Eric's hand up. Was that right, Eric?
Yes. I think I found it very, very helpful that you emphasized that trust is a two-way street, that it's me trusting other people, but also me being able to accept the trust of others or to see the trust of others. I think this is extremely important. It's not just a one-sided affair. And there are many things that happen sometimes in time banks where we might jump to conclusions that somebody's not trustworthy. Just looking at the time banking thing, if somebody doesn't respond maybe quickly to an offer or request that they said they would do, or they don't turn up or whatever, it's very easy to say, oh, they're not trustworthy. But I'd like to raise the question, is that really the first thing we should think of? Something may have happened in their life, or they may have just, forgotten it. Time banking is often a new way for people to interact, or they may have a crisis in their life in any way. Maybe we shouldn't always jump to that conclusion, even if it happens several times, but say, well, what can we do to improve the communication, if that's the issue? Or what can we do to improve the feeling of trust? I think there's a lot of steps one can take before using the label untrustworthy.
So that is absolutely, that just opens such a fascinating, such an important thing, Eric, because I know, and we all know if we've been involved in time banking for any length of time, that it can be a bit like a leaky bucket. People say they will do something, and then they don't do it. The exchange doesn't take place. And the person who was looking forward to the exchange doesn't lose trust just in that person. They actually, where they lose trust is in the time bank. They say, well, I don't know, time banking doesn't work. I had an agreement with this person. They were going to come and do an exchange, and then they didn't do the exchange. There must be something wrong with time banking. And then they say, well, maybe I'm not into this time banking thing. And so this is another reason why taking account of trust is so important. And this is actually for both members and coordinators. It's like we're coming into this space together to make exchanges. If we were exchanging money, we wouldn't think another thing. If we had given some money to do something, we would do it because we're sort of trained. What did the note say? In God we trust, or something like that on there. It's like we have culture that says you earn money, you do it. And time credits, we think, oh, well, I'm just exchanging my time with somebody else, or it can be that way. And then the question is yes, but what we're doing is we're knitting together trust with these hours of exchanges. So I wonder if anyone has any thoughts or any experience of that, actually of somebody not being trustful, not doing something, and then wondering, how do I deal with this? Oh, there's somebody, Jerome, somebody's coming in. Submit that person.
We actually have someone who chatted, Elizabeth Green, and asked, when someone is repeatedly an hour late to work, do we bill her for that hour or fire her and report her as untrustworthy?
And have you had a conversation with that person?
That's a good question. Elizabeth?
Um,
Okay.
because
Not the time bank yet, but if I were to, if we were to join the time bank, then I would need to know what to do.
Hmm.
So, yeah, right now it's outside of time bank, but she's totally unreliable. She writes things in her text that she's there and she's not there.
wow. So, so this raises a really interesting question about onboarding somebody into your time bank.
Mhm.
And if you know that somebody is as untrustworthy as you say, how do you, as it were, I'll just use this term, but it's maybe not the best term, but I'll use it. How do you protect the reputation of the time bank? How do you have it so that it's not a leaky bucket? Because you're trying to make your time bank be as sort of leak proof as you possibly can. And here you are, you've got a member, if she desires to join, somebody that you know is a leak waiting to happen. How do you deal with that as a one-on-one with her, as a time bank, as somebody with all the core values that we have, you know, everyone has something to offer, building all that, everyone knows the 5 core values. In light of those 5 core values, this is a really interesting conundrum in a way, because you want to involve her, you want to invite her, you want to have her in your time bank, and she could actually undermine the trust that you're building.
Hmm.
Are there any thoughts about
Bank who says, then don't invite her.
who says don't invite her?
Oh, no, I said, so that's what I guess you're saying is then just don't invite her.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that at all. No, absolutely not. No, what I'm saying is when you do invite her, there needs to be some real thought as to how you invite her in a way that maximizes the chance of her not being untrustworthy. So it may be in the kinds of exchanges, and you actually, or it may be that you say, you know, when we have a new person come on, and I don't know how able you are to talk about her with these things, but to stress how important keeping one's word is for the time bank, or having feedback loops in relation to exchanges with her. I don't know, but this is something where I think having a conversation as to how to do this safely, and it would be wonderful to hear any of the rest of you maybe had experience either one-on-one with another member who hasn't come through, or a bit more systemically in your time bank with a member who has flaked out. Maybe you have a rule, you make a new rule in your time bank and you say to this person, we're so welcome to have you, but we have a rule in this time bank. If you agree to an exchange and on 2 occasions you don't do it, we have to put your membership on hold. Something like that.
Hmm.
Yes, Eric.
I can't
Ah.
really speak to specific situations, but listening to this the last few minutes, I was thinking, well, you know, the word trustworthy, just like respectful or this person's evil, those are all judgments. And I think it's very useful to shy away from using judgments like that. And it's better to use descriptive behavior when talking with somebody or talking to others. When talking to a person who's very often late, to say, well, you're very often late, or you don't do this or do that or whatever. And maybe that person notices that that's the way they operate. And maybe one can suggest, put that up in your bio that this is the way I am, unfortunately, and let people know. And not say trustworthy or not trustworthy, because that's just a broad thing. And it's sort of like a stamp on somebody's being. And maybe they're untrustworthy or not, sorry, maybe they're late to certain things, but other things not. I don't know. But just as a general thing, it just crossed my mind that I would more prefer to hear what the issue is than a judgment on somebody.
That's such a good point, Eric. Oh, yes, Donna.
Yes, in our time bank, we, from time to time, we talk about the possibility of having some kind of feedback system, but it always seems so problematic that we've never really done it. I wonder if any other time banks actually have any kind of feedback system.
Jerome. And then
Yeah.
Gail. And
Okay,
then
thank you.
Marcella. Sorry, sorry, just seeing you across the top. So Jerome, Gail, and Marcella.
Yeah, hello, everybody. I work with youth time banking. I recall a situation that came up where literally it was about trust and the word was used. I was speaking with, I think it was a 17-year-old high school student, and he was involved with some time banking activities with gardening, and he was looking for a job, part-time job. And one of the ways that he was earning credits was that he would earn cell phone minutes on a track phone. And so we obtained that for him. And the following week, he had used up all of the credits for the phone. So I called him on his mother's phone and spoke with him and asked him about this, and he was quiet. And I said to him that I was counting on him, that I wanted to have an agreement that we both understood what our agreement was. And I asked him if he wanted me to trust him, and he was quiet. His voice was low, but he did answer. He said, "Yes, I want you to trust me." And I said, "I'm happy to hear that. I want you to trust me, and I want us to have a trusting relationship." And I said, one of the ways that it's meaningful to me regarding trust is to know if I can count on someone, and of course, if they can count on me. And I said, I want to know, can I count on you? Do we have an understanding of our agreement of how the credits will work with the cell phone and what you're going to be doing with youth time banking? And he said, yes. And I said, okay, then I'm acknowledging that now we're experiencing trust. I'm going to recharge your track phone so that you can continue to look for work. And you're telling me that that's how you're going to use it. And then do we have that agreement? And he said, yes. And I do want you to trust me. And that was a pretty profound experience. It was meaningful for both of us. I could feel myself feeling like an emotional bond with another human being. And I think maybe no one ever spoke with him like that. I wasn't angry. He wasn't angry. No one was humiliated or embarrassed. And it was, in hindsight, it seemed like it was a good experience that this setback happened, if we call it a setback, because now we really felt like when this individual and I spoke with each other, that we really believed each other, that we knew that what we were saying and what we were doing matters. And I reinforced that, particularly with the youth that I crossed paths with in youth time banking, that everything we're doing matters. It's transformative. And if you don't think it is, or if it isn't, then find something better to do, or let's figure that out.
Yeah.
And that was pretty powerful experience for me.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. It is a powerful story. Thank you. So I'm going to go to Gail next and then to Marcella.
Thank you. I want to thank Eric, Jerome, both of you. It just reminds me, and I'll get into the time banking in a moment, the years when I was working with children in a psychiatric unit and having to write reports, that it had to be very specific what had happened so that that could be addressed, and not just a global child's untrustworthy or this, that, or the other. And as far as with time banking, at least with our group here in Manhattan, there's a 3-month period of the person who'd like to come in to see how it is, and the same for us to see if they fit.
Interesting.
You know, it's, and also again what Jerome and Eric pointed out, it has to be specific and for that to be addressed. But this 3-month seems to work quite nicely. So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, that's a lovely idea. Thank you, Gail.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go now to Marcella. Oops, you're on mute, Marcella. Still, there you
Okay.
go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I was gonna kind of reiterate also what was it Gail that had said about being very specific. I think also it's good to avoid the actual, the broad category of untrustworthy, because that can mean so many things. And I think, like in the case of the example of somebody coming into work, I believe it was an hour late every day. If they're like the same time an hour late every day, you can't exactly say that's unreliability, but that might be a commitment issue, possibly. And therefore, with the time bank, I think it's important to be structured to have people, the members realize like where they might have an issue with commitment, where they do have the most available free time to share. That for some people that might be in the evening, some people it might be in the mornings, to make a matchup regarding that availability versus the person who's doing the giving and the person who's doing the receiving of that. I think that's all there was one comment made though also about the person coming in late was also apparently lying, saying that they were someplace when they weren't. That's another issue that's, kind of specific to, that's more dishonesty. And that's all I have to say.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Marcella, for sharing that. So I'm seeing in the chat, Mark has written a long piece about trust and scarcity thinking. And he refers to permaculture. I don't know how many in this room know about permaculture. I know of it, and I don't know enough about it. And I keep saying over and over and over again, must learn about permaculture, because I think that time banking and permaculture are like hand in glove. I think they so beautifully fit next to each other. But he talks about scarcity thinking, which is how we are encouraged through our economics to think in terms of scarcity. How do we allocate scarce resources? Whereas permaculture is looking into abundance and saying, look at nature, it's abundant. So how can we make abundance rather than scarcity? And I think he says, I'm going to read what you wrote, Mark. In scarcity mentality, we start thinking in controlling, in punishment, in forcing others to do what someone higher in a hierarchy orders us to do. We're better than that. I think we need to go beyond the punishment reward system and turn things around to look at the other way. says scarcity is almost always man-made and evoked by humans. Time is abundant. There's 86,400 seconds in every day available to us. So that is such an interesting point, Mark, because how we use our time, and this is time banking, is like seeking to say, you know, Edgar would always say, an hour is our precious slice of eternity. How do we use our hours? And Jerome spoke to sort of saying, look, when we make these exchanges, these are special moments we're making. We're not just doing any old thing, we're making special moments. And we're building trust. And our time bank is setting out to do that. And Eric has written too, I agree that if we want to grow relationships, we do need to go beyond the punishment reward system. And Jerome gave us a great example of how to do it. Does anyone else have an example of how we get beyond sort of judgment and into building trust where it might have otherwise, as I called it, been a leaky bucket? So I'm going to make, actually, I know I said I love these long silences, but I'm not going to, I actually want to say something. I'm going to make an admission here. And it's about my use of time. And you know that in our lives these days, we talk about time management a lot, because even though there may be 86,400 seconds in every day, I think it's in every day, sort of managing those 86,400 seconds can be quite a challenge. And I have a tendency to think that I can fit 900,000 seconds into 86,400 seconds in the day and think I'll do that and that and that and that and that, and then crunch. I can't do them all, and then it's a juggle, and then things get left off, and then they don't happen, and it's trust breaking. I know it's trust breaking, and I really actually could do with some help on how to do that better. And I think that going back to the non-judgment thing, and maybe that person who's an hour late every day, maybe that's actually would be a brilliant time bank exchange, is to say, we see you that you're late every time. Can we give you some help coaching on how to get to an exchange on time? Something like that. I don't know. What do you think?
I do have something to mention here. With our family, I'm from Puerto Rico, and we have this thing, pretty much all of our aunts and uncles, grandparents, everybody, we're gonna always be late for everything. And we call it island time, right? I'm sure you've heard that, but it's the part where, you know, island time, but I'm very different. I have always been on time. I try to be on time for everything, but I have known to I love my family, but I actually arrange for them to be an hour early. I do that without them even knowing it. So I do that even with my son. Be here at 3:30, even though his appointment was at 4:30. It's things that you just already know their personality, and that's just what it is. And it's just working with them. So I just wanted to just throw that. And then another experience that we had is my granddaughter. We took her to the gas station. It's Island Burgers. It's the best burgers in town, and they sell these burgers at this gas station. And we went in there, and she found those little squidgy toys that you squeeze, and it makes those really loud ducky noises. Have you seen those, right? Well, she grabbed two of them and she started squeezing them really loud. And you know, we have a lot of kids, we have grandkids. I'm used to our kids being loud, and parents real quickly will just say, stop it, or put the toy down. But I actually, you know, I told her, I said, I want you to look around. And I said, see that man over there? He works there. How do you think he feels about people grabbing that toy and squeezing it really loud and keep playing and playing it? And she looked at him, and he looked at her. He was sad and she stopped. And she immediately just learned, she felt him, she felt what was going on. Instead of, you know, kind of rebuking her and yelling at her or throwing the toy and putting it away or, you know, spanking her bottom or something like, but actually having her aware of other people's feelings was really important for her. She's 7, but it's just that point where I think a lot of people are just not really aware of what they do. And like Jerome, when you mentioned it, just sharing that and just coming from your heart, not from your ego, but coming from your heart saying, hey, when you do this, it kind of messes people up. We learn to just not trust you. We learn to not respect you. And that's what we're all about here in time banking, is respecting one another. So just letting you know, why don't you just plan on being a half hour early or an hour early, just to show people that you're part of this tribe, because we all are in this together. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yes, that's so on point. Eric, you want to respond to that?
I wanted to add that Krista brought up a very important point, that in different cultures, in different countries, but even in any one country, there are subcultures of people reacting, for example, to time in different ways. And it's so important to be aware of that and not let, I say to myself, I should not be frustrated if somebody has a different expectation than I do. I need to be aware of that expectation. I need to understand it. And maybe I need to adjust my way of acting to fit that expectation. But if I'm aware that somebody is different and normally acts different, and that's their normal, or that's the normal of the culture, it takes away, from me at least, the anger of feeling, oh, untrustworthy or bad or, you know, not respectful. It's not always easy, especially if there's the culture of coming early and the culture of coming late. They do clash. And it's worth talking about it. And one adjustment is what Krista did, but I'm sure there are many other ones. But just to ignore it and then stew in the feelings, the bad feelings, is not going to resolve anything. We need to find a way to go beyond those feelings. But I've lived and worked in many different countries and cultures, and it is really, it's not only about time. There are many other things that are different from culture to culture and subcultures in a country. So to be aware of those differences is extremely important. And that, I guess, also means talking about it and sharing your thoughts in a respectful and non, you're to blame point of view, and not trying to blame one or the other person for it. We are different people.
Mm-hmm.
So this is being such an interesting conversation, and I'm aware that this is a good thing. I'm just unaware of how much we're talking of trust as our individual responsibility. And I'm also aware, I'm just seeing Ken's response, Ken's responses in the chat there, of the, what can I say, organizational sort of system dynamics of this, and how we strive, and like, for instance, there's time banks in hospitals, or Kerry, you have a time bank that's related to the work that your organization does. There's quite a number of time banks that are related to organizations with a mission and a vision, and the time bank is sort of hitched to that, as it were, or it's there to sort of be a way for that mission and vision to be fulfilled. And in that case, you're trying to actually create something that's not just all the weight on the individuals to be trustworthy. You're trying to create something that will encourage trustworthiness to be a shared cultural, a shared norm between people, that it'll be, but of course we trust each other. Of course we do these things in a trustworthy way for each other. And as I'm seeing on the side here, in different communities, that will mean different things. And that was what Eric was talking about. In one community, what's trustworthy is different from what's trustworthy in another community. And in this jumbled up world that we're living into, where there's so much kind of different kinds of populations coming together, we have to learn to be very flexible about these things. While at the same time, I mean, it's an amazing thing, really, when you think about it. We're building institutions that have to follow rules, have to follow procedures, have to do, things in a way that set expectations. So there's a lot to this. It's really a big deal, this business of building trust. Are there any other comments? We'll be closing out shortly. And I'd love to hear any other thoughts that come to you around this. Oh, I'm sorry, Patty, I didn't see your hand. There's your hand and I didn't see it. There you go.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank Kirk for my being here. I appreciate that. And Emily, I see you're on here somewhere as well. So, I want to ask if somebody here knows of anybody connected with the Phoenix Time Bank.
The Phoenix Time Bank. Yeah, well, let me just say this. I was with them for their board meeting last week. And I should explain to, or perhaps Patty, you can explain why you're asking that.
I need help with the project.
Ah, you need help with the project from the Phoenix Time Bank.
Yes.
Well, we can, I'm sure, Krista, we can put you in touch with them for sure. I should just tell you as well that they have just experienced something very tragic, which is Diana, the chair of their board, and her husband, Bruce, they were killed in a car accident
Oh,
3 weeks ago.
Sorry to hear that. Oh,
Yes,
my word.
yes. So that time bank is in deep shock and trying to work out how they'll go forward, because Diana and Bruce were so powerful as leaders. They were so important as leaders in that time bank, and this is such a sudden and painful loss for them.
Wow.
Yeah, that was so.
Patty, Jerome asked a question. Is this Phoenixville, Pennsylvania Time Bank or Phoenix in Time Bank?
Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Arizona.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Oh, it's that was me missing up. So it's Phoenixville I'm talking about in Pennsylvania, and you're talking about Phoenix in Arizona.
Yes.
Okay.
Got it. I'm glad you asked, Krista.
That's Jerome. Thanks, Jerome.
Oh, did he put something in there? Oh, good for you, Jerome. Talking about, being precise in communications.
Yeah, it's shocking for me to hear what you said, though, about the loss of the leaders from the Phoenixville area time bank. I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yes. It's a huge loss for them. And
I spoke with, is it Diana?
yes, Diana.
Gosh, I mean, this is like a stunning.
Yes, it is.
I spoke with her a few months ago.
Yeah.
Right after the International Time Banking Day session.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, it's
oh gosh.
Yes, this is what can happen. People can be taken away from us so unexpectedly.
Patty, I went ahead and sent you my email address if you wanted to ask me the questions, your email. Okay.
Thank you.
You got it. We have a couple of minutes.
Any final thoughts? I want to just say about the loss of Diana and Bruce, who were inspiring leaders. Some time banks are lucky enough to have leaders that just inspire people, and Diana and Bruce were those kinds of leaders. And so the time bank is just reeling from the loss. And also they had such the board, the 5 members of the board who are remaining, so thoughtful and so caring about the time bank and how they'll be moving on, and what they'll do it and how they'll do it. And that was itself was an amazing experience to be joining them for that conversation. So they'll be working what they need to do.
Thank you.
So it looks like maybe we've got 5 minutes. No final comments from anyone?
You know, I'll share
Oh,
something small.
thank you, Karen.
And it builds a bit on what Eric was saying, which I so appreciate, that we continue to remember that so much of how we view each other and like valuable personal qualities is culturally constrained and determined. And just a reminder of why it's so important that the groups like Chris, you're talking about, the leadership groups of whether it's a board or action teams or whomever, that they're reflective of the membership, and that also that membership, there is such a value to really always trying to reach for more diverse membership, because I find without continuing to maintain that goal of engaging people who are most at risk of inequity of any kind, that time banking can kind of evolve into this thing of people who look a lot like me, who are older people, who are white people, who are more highly educated, who put a premium on things like being on time and working hard, and these traditional sort of white supremacy notions of what is valued in the world. And I just think I and others like me have so much to learn from folks who are not like me, and getting out of the way and being able to listen and recognize that doing unto others as I might want done unto me is not necessarily the best way of operating. So a lot to think about. You all have given me a lot to think about too. So thank you today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Carrie.
Yes, thank you so much for adding that in. Who said thank you? Whoever did.
Gail, sorry.
Gail, thank you, Gail. So yes, thank you, Carrie, because that is so important. And my friend and colleague, Reverend Dr. Arnold Murray is here, and he has commented. He's been here before and said, Chris, everybody on that call is white. And I've said to him, that is true, Arnold. Look, he's laughing, but it's true. And, you know, yes, there needs to be more outreach. There needs to be more care. I could call Arnold and say, Arnold, what can we do to change this, you know? But on the other hand, and Arnold, I'm putting you on the spot. That does put Arnold on the spot, you know? It can be a bit tricky. It's like, how do we do this without putting, I put Arnold on the spot because Arnold, I know you can handle it. but he's a very good friend as well. But yes, that is a challenge that we must face, take on, accept. Yes. Arnold, do you have anything you would like to add to that?
Just thank you for your friendship, Chris and Krista. I know them better than the rest on the call. And just keep sharing, keep having conversations. Keep having conversations. I mean, Chris, if you want to say something, we just started an outreach a week ago to some folks who have experienced the inner city life of the DC area. And so just keep on reaching out to people, create opportunities to have conversations. I'll complete with that.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that, Arnold.
Thank you.
Yes, and that comes back to what Kurt was sharing about the listening. How well do we listen as well, I think. How well do we listen? And we maybe cut people off without even knowing that we're doing that, to be very aware. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Carrie. That was really, really good.
Good question. Elizabeth, are you still here?
There's a question in the chat.
Oh, no, it was Elizabeth who asked the question. It really opened the door.
Oh,
to this conversation.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we are about time. It's almost 5 o'clock, but our next chat at the bench is October 16th. And we would love to see you here. at our next
I'd
call.
like to just add something to
Okay,
this.
yes.
So if we can, if Eric will, Dunnan's, the person whose blog I drew from, is able to join us, we will have him with us next time as a guest. And I think that there's so much more still to be said about trust and diversity together. Those two things that you've just brought us to the end of this conversation with, Carrie. I think we could start the conversation next time with how do we build trust and diversity, those two things together. That's that would be a very meaningful conversation, I think. So, all right. So thank you all so very, very, very much for all of your presences, for all of your thinking, for your just being here, and for being involved with time banking. Yay. And Edgar behind me will be saying thank you too. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye,
Thank you very
everybody.
much.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
Be
Thank
safe.
you. This was
Bye.
wonderful. Right.